Hello guys, welcome to or welcome back to my channel, and I hope you're having a terrifying night, day, or afternoon, wherever and whenever you are in the world. Dark setting. Very, very plentiful. No, I'm just kidding. We're going to be telling some scary, I'm going to be telling some scary stories to you guys. In honor of the Halloween season, and as October is rapidly coming to an end, let's get spooky. Relax, grab a snack, grab a drink, and just settle on down as I tell you guys, not one, not two, but 6 scary stories from 4 different books. 2 of them are Scary Stories to Tell in the Dark, the OGs, come on, hello. A book called More Bones, and of course, creepypastas. So, let's get started. And as Jack Neal has said many times, look behind you. Alright, let's start off with a More Bones story from the More Bones book. A story called The Shaggy Gray Arm. Also, if you see me like doing this, that's because Glass is here, my faithful little doggy companion who will warn of danger. Wanna say hi? No? She's a little bit frightened, guys, but it's fine. We can all be scared together. The Shaggy Gray Arm from Iceland. John's parents didn't want him to go to a magic school. They had heard that some students changed in strange and mysterious ways, and some disappeared without a trace. But John was determined. How else can I chase away ghosts and demons, he asked. How can I overcome bullies? I must learn to write magic signs and symbols so I can protect us. The truth was that his parents didn't want him to go to any school at all. In those days, most people in Iceland believed that reading and writing were dangerous. Someone might use the knowledge for evil purposes. Even clergymen were suspect. But bit by bit, John convinced his parents that magic could be useful. Didn't they want to see the invisible little people who lived in the rocks and hillocks around their farm? The ones who slipped into the house each night to eat the food left for them on the table? Besides, John promised he would be a good magician. He said he would never dig up a body in a graveyard and skin the lower half to make a pair of magic pants. Who wants the coins that appear in corpse breeches? He asked. Not me. He said he would undo evil curses that dried up a cow's milk or left a baby crying all day. So his parents finally relented. They waved goodbye to their son with tears in their eyes. Who knew what the future held? Would they ever see him again? John walked for hours. When he finally arrived at magic school, he saw smoke bleaching from a nearby volcano. He knocked on the school's iron door. A shaggy gray hand poked a hole through the thick iron, reached out to turn the handle, and beckoned John to come inside. The door groaned open. John looked, but he saw no one there. No shaggy gray body belonged to the Shaggy Gray Arm. John did a spiral staircase leading deep into the earth. And just as he took the first step downward, the door clanged shut behind him. John realized that the hole in the iron door had mysteriously closed, leaving him in inky darkness. He inched his way down, feeling for the edge of each step with his toe. Maybe the stairwell seemed endless because he was moving so slowly, or maybe it really did descend to the very bowels of the earth. With each step he grew warmer as he neared the underground cauldrons of volcanoes. Finally, he saw a faint glow ahead. It was coming through a doorway at the bottom of the stairs. When he entered the carnivorous room, the only light he saw was from the fiery letters and books that students held in their hands. No sunlight pierced the darkness of their study hall. No teacher lectured the class. A boy named Magnus welcomed him, but most kept reading. John knew they couldn't spare a moment from their studies. He remembered what a storyteller had said about the magic in the skin-covered books and how hard it was to learn. 7 years, the storyteller had said. That's how long it takes to master everything spelled out in fiery letters. John realized he would have to work hard to keep up with the rest of the class. He had arrived weeks late because it took so long to convince his parents to let him go to magic school. Suddenly, every head snapped up. It was time to eat. The shaggy gray arm that John had seen at the iron door now shoved itself through the rock wall of the classroom. It handed each student a platter of fish along with milk in a cup made from a ram's horn. John wondered why the students were listening so intently. He saw the arm withdraw and heard a muffled shriek just before the wall slammed shut. Who was back there? Another student? A shaggy servant? Some students whispered to one another. Some anxiously thumbed through their books, looking for protective spells, but others seemed to grow more menacing after they finished eating. All quickly returned to their studies. How do I get a book? John wondered out loud. He didn't have to wait for long. The shaggy gray arm thrust through the cave wall and dropped the first magic book on his desk. When the arm withdrew, it left a whiff of sulfur behind. John snorted to get the stench out of his nose. Then he began with the easiest spells, because he was learning to read and write at the same time. Magnus answered all of John's questions, much to the annoyance of some students. They wanted to concentrate in perfect silence. Somehow the fiery letters lit up words in John's mind. When he finally headed to his room, totally exhausted, the same fiery letters lit his way along the corridor as eerily as a candle. Before he fell asleep, he saw the dim back of a student outside his door. He didn't know which one, but just as Magnus walked past, he saw the student wave his hands and mutter something. In a puff of smoke, Magnus disappeared, and a slippery slug crept up the wall. John was mortified, but he sneaked into the corridor as soon as he could and put the slug safely on his closet shelf. From then on, he was wary of his classmates. Whom could he trust? Year after year, John studied until he was one of the most talented magicians at the school. He finally learned how to turn the slug back into Magnus, and he shared the knowledge that Magnus had missed while making slimy trails in the closet. John could cause another student's big fish to swim. He could turn a ram's horn cup into a wildly budding ram. He knew how to ward off ghosts and demons and how to put special signs inside his shoes to overcome a bully. He learned demonic spells and curses too, but he stored them in the deepest recesses of his mind, never to be used unless he was in extreme danger. After 7 years, John and his classmates were about to return to the upper world. All but one, that is. A terrible rumor was being whispered about. Some student was going to disappear without a trace. John hadn't believed what his parents had said so long ago. But now Magnus was saying the same thing, and Magnus knew exactly how it would happen. We'll go up the stairs single file, he said, and everyone will be allowed into the upper world except for the last one in line. The Shaggy Gray Arm will grab him and carry him down to the deepest, darkest depths, where he will be a slave forever. Rough. John knew he couldn't undo that demonic gray arm with magic, but he was the leader of his class. He had to do something, so he made a plan. I'll leave last, John told his classmates. Some sneered at him for being such a fool. Magnus thanked him. On the last day, John and his classmates began the long climb up the dark stairs. The Shaggy Gray Arm was holding the iron door open at the top. One by one, his classmates exited into the first sunlight they had seen in 7 years. When John reached the door, he saw the Shaggy Arm reaching for him. I am not last, John shouted. See the one behind me? John leaped out the door while the Shaggy Arm seized John's shadow instead. When the arm realized what it had done, it rang that iron door like a monstrous cymbal, clanking its spear all the way to the center of the earth. John was free. He was almost dancing down the path. Then he saw a demonic grin on Magnus's face. Do you realize that whatever that gray arm takes, it never gives back? John stared at the ground where his shadow should be. And do you realize, Magnus asked, what troubles you'll have with no shadow? Everyone will think you are a demon. They will run away screaming. John suddenly noticed that Magnus had no shadow either. Welcome to my world, said Magnus, shaking John's hand. His grip was excruciatingly painful. John looked down in horror. Creeping down Magnus' arm was a wave of shaggy gray fur. Oh my gosh, that was such a mouthful. Oh, I forgot to mention that this story, along with one more story, I promise, but don't quote me on that. Yeah, don't quote me on that. Forget my promise. Don't quote me on that. Are going to be long. I tried to find some short ones, but it's not going to work. Besides, I wanted this video to be long. So, okay, moving on to the same book. Because let me just keep it in order. So we'll do this book, then we'll do the creepypastas, then we'll save the best for last, scary stories to tell in the dark. The last story that we have for More Bones is The Haunted Violin. And this story comes from Germany. Even the magician couldn't stop the passage of time when his long life was about to end. Wood from this tree, he said, pointing to one that shaded his doorstep. It sprang from the ground the day I was born. But be sure to use it for my coffin and for nothing else. For nothing else, the carpenter. But he was even more surprised when the magician said, treat the wood gently. Take care not to make it cry. The carpenter couldn't imagine a tree crying, but he wanted to make the coffin, so he agreed to do exactly what the magician asked. He listened hard when he fell, unless the wood's voice was muffled by the sound of a saw. When the old magician died, the carpenter sanded boards for the coffin. He saw that the wood was magnified. He saw that the wood was magnificent, dark, straight, and grained. It was much too lovely to bury under the dirt. The carpenter couldn't decide what to do. Should he use the wood as he pleased, or should he honor the magician's wish? In the end, he reluctantly used the wood for the coffin and delivered it in time for the magician's burial. When he returned to his workshop, the carpenter stared at the few boards that were left over. Surely the magician wouldn't want them to go to waste, he thought. They would make an excellent violin. I'll start working on it tomorrow. That night, however, the old magician burst into his dreams. Don't you dare use my wood for a violin, he said. Don't do it. The carpenter awoke. He lay there thinking for a moment, but he never paid attention to dreams. Besides, he was tired, so he turned over and went back to sleep.
Sorry.
The very next day, he began carving the wood. He labored over it for weeks until he had made an elegant violin, handsomely shaped and beautifully polished. He could hardly wait to hear how it sounded, but in order to play it, he had to make a bow. I'll begin first thing in the morning, he told himself. That night, the dead magician returned. Now you have done it, he told the carpenter. It will be much worse if you make a bow. The carpenter was feeling a bit uneasy when he awoke, but again he dismissed his dream. He worked hard all day shaping and varnishing the bow, but he couldn't try it out until morning, when the varnish had dried. He went to bed, and again he dreamed about the magician. The dead man was very angry. This is your last chance, he said. Do not play that violin. The next morning, the carpenter felt a twinge of fear, but he knew that nothing had happened when he had finished making the violin. Why should he worry about playing it? He hurried to his workshop, strung the bow, took down the violin, and began to play. He was not a skilled violinist, so he was astounded by the haunting melody that arose. It seemed to spring forth on its own, crying like a dirge sung at a funeral. But no sooner had he finished playing than the room turned dark. He rushed to the window and leaned out to see if the sun had been eclipsed, but all he saw was more darkness. Suddenly, invisible hands picked him up and thrust him out the window. The carpenter tumbled down and sank to something soft. He realized with horror that it was quicksand, sucking him into the earth. He thrashed. Ooh, jeez. My gosh. This picture scared me. Hold on. Can you guys see it? Yeah, this scared me. I was not prepared for that. He thrashed about wildly, but it was too late. The quicksand dragged him under as he drew his last breath. When the carpenter's son entered the workshop later that morning, he found his father's body lying on the floor, with the violin clutched in his hand. The son was distraught. He didn't know what had happened, but that night the same magician visited the son's dream to tell him what had taken place. The son awoke confused. What sort of magic was in that tree? One thing the son knew for sure, that violin was dangerous. He arose at dawn and burned it. As it went up in flames, he thought he heard a voice crying out from afar. Was the soul of the carpenter being tortured somewhere? Or was that the voice of the magician crying out from the grave? Okay, this one, it was a little bit scarier than the Shaggy Gray Arm. I was about to say what's his face, the Shaggy Gray Arm. This struck a little bit fear into my heart, especially that picture. Ugh. Ooh, child, I need to wrap myself in my blanket. And yes, it's a strawberry shortcake blanket. I know, don't judge me. Keepsake. What's that? Pamela asked, running her hands over the verdant green cloth. Whatever it covered stood nearly a foot taller than her. It was roughly rectangular shaped, and she could feel what felt like molded metal underneath her fingers. An old family heirloom, Shauna answered. Her skin glowed milky white in the soft moonlight that filtered into the room. She reached out and touched it fondly, caressing it. It's the only thing I kept. It's a reminder of where I came from and who I used to be. She put a hand on Pamela's shoulder and smiled. Go ahead. You can look at it. Pamela pulled the cloth in and fell in ripples to the ground. She gasped at the full-length mirror before. Ornate designs of winged angels ran up and down the gold plating surrounding the mirror that now reflected the dim room back at Pamela. She squinted her eyes as she looked in the mirror, feeling Shayna lower her head next to Pamela's own. And as she looked, she realized that in the mirror, she stood alone, even as the hand on her shoulder tightened. Okay. And that's ironic because I'm sitting at my dresser, I'm actually looking at my vanity mirror. And this is also ironic because the next and last creepypasta is called In the Dark. I see you over there, tucked into your bed. I hope you feel uncomfortable. I hope you sense me over here, watching you. I wonder if you can see my emerald eyes staring at you. I hope you feel them piercing your soul. I hope you feel my presence here waiting. The bed trembles as you turn uneasily. I know that I will soon have my prize. I am Coral Springs, ready to attack when you are weak, which will be soon. The blankets churn. It won't be long now. I see your resolve fading quickly. Only a while longer until I can sink my sharp teeth into you. Only a while longer until I can claw to your ribbons. You look around as you get up cautiously. You know I'm here, but you convince yourself that I'm not lurking in the shadows that stretch across the room. As you walk by, I prepare you will come back, and that is when I will attack. I come out of my hidden spot, just enough so that nothing will catch me as I pounce to destroy you. You're walking back now. You're right next to me. I go. My claws and teeth sink into your protective coat, right into your core. Ow, kitty! What are you doing? Killing the beast that has infected you, I think. Meow, is what I say instead. It's just a sock, you say as you drag the bloodied white creature behind you. It is a dead parasite, Miro. I use lighter words to comfort you as you settle back down into warmth. I can take vigil on top of the bed to score the darkness for other things that lurk in plain sight. Whoa, this is a perfect description of what I felt like when I was little, when I was freaking scared of the dark. And when I had like this tall lamp in the corner of my room, like where my art desk and my entrepreneur stuff is, I would beg my mom to just leave that light on for the whole night, because that's a story for another time on this channel. Next, finally and last, we are moving on to the goats. I can't begin to tell you guys how much I appreciate scary stories to scare. Oh my god, I can't read, I can't talk. Scary stories to tell in the dark. I read that book. I think it was that book, like, you know, with like the knife and the bloodied hanky and the tombstone and stuff that says scary. Yeah, it was that volume book. I forgot what volume or number it was. That was the book I read the most whenever I was in aftercare, because they had all these old books and I would read that book every single time. And I'm actually going to be reading one of my favorite stories from that book, so come on. I don't. Okay, there we go. Gosh, I hate being scared for that picture. I don't usually get scared, which is kind of ironic or an oxymoron or whatever, because I always say that I'm a very paranoid person and I like to keep guarded, but half some of this stuff isn't real. It's not real, so I have no reason to be scared. Okay. This one is called The Attic, and this is from the same book, although I don't remember reading this, but okay. A man named Rupert lived with his dog in a house deep in the woods. Rupert was a hunter and a trapper. The dog was a big German shepherd named Sam. Oh, I got a German shepherd. But right now I have a poodle that's asleep. Anyway, Rupert had raised Sam from a pup. Almost every morning Rupert went hunting and Sam stayed behind and guarded the house. One morning as Rupert was checking his traps, he got the feeling that something was wrong at home. He hurried back as fast as he could, but when he got there, he found that Sam was missing. He searched the house in the woods nearby, but Sam was nowhere to be seen. He called and he called, but the dog did not answer. For days, Rupert looked for Sam, but he could find no trace of him. Finally, he gave up and went back to his work. But one morning, he heard something moving in the attic. He picked up his gun, then he thought, I better be quiet about this. So he took off his boots, and in his bare feet he began to climb the attic stairs. He slowly took one step, then another, until at last he reached the attic door. He used to think. Then he opened the door and, not that scream, At this point the storyteller stops as if he had finished. Oh, sorry. Then usually somebody will ask, why did Rupert scream? The storyteller replies, you scream too if you stepped on a nail in your bare feet. And the picture of this is a weird looking attic. Hold up. Yeah, do you guys see? This is a weird looking attic. It's not even the art, it's just the way that it's constructed. Like, some attics are built like this. Like, I don't know if you guys, well, I told you guys before in the past, before new subscribers, believe it or not, my room is in the attic. And so is my entertainment room. But I've never seen an attic like this. But anyway. Oh, wow. Wow, that's it. That was so lame. Shoot. Now I'm glad that I saved this last one for last. Okay. Last one for the girlies. Wonderful sausage. One dark, rainy Saturday afternoon, a fat and jolly butcher named Samuel Blunt had an argument over money with his wife, Eloise. Blunt lost his temper and killed Eloise. Then he ground her up, and this is how I read it. Then he ground her up into sausage meat and buried her bones under a big flat rock in the backyard. To keep the murder a secret, he told everyone that she had moved away. Wow, so smart. Blunt mixed his new sausage meat with pork, then seasoned it with salt and pepper, added some sage and thyme, and a bit of garlic. To give it a special flavor, he smoked it in his smokehouse for a while. He called it Blunt's Special Sausage. There was such a demand for this new sausage that Blunt bought the best hogs he could find and started raising his own pork. He also kept a sharp lookout for humans who might make a tasty sausage meat. One day, a nice, plump school teacher came into his shop. Blunt grabbed her and ground her up. Another time, Blunt's dentist came by. He was a little round man, and into the grinder he went. Then one by one, the children in the neighborhood began to disappear, and so did their kids and puppies. But no one ever dreamed that Blunt the butcher had anything to do with it. Things went on that way for years. Then one day, Blunt made a mistake. A fat boy came into the butcher shop. Blunt grabbed him and started to drag him off to the sausage grinder, but the boy broke loose and ran out of the shop. And Blunt chased after him, waving a big butcher knife. When people saw this, they realized at once what had become of all the missing children, and grown-ups, and kittens, and puppies. An angry crowd gathered at the butcher shop. No one knows for sure just what happened to Blunt that day. Some say he was fed to his hogs. Others say he was fed to his sausage grinder. But he was never seen again, and neither was his wonderful sausage meat. And there's the picture. I have never seen this picture because it wasn't in there. I'm assuming that old boy ran out the back. I'm just gonna say that, because if they were like in the front of the store, he probably ran out into the back. But hey, that's just a theory. That's just a theory. Alright, my spookified babies, that's the end of this video. Hopefully you enjoyed it and got a little bit scared, or at least enjoyed by my storytelling skills, despite how many times I paused. Literally, it's gonna be cut out. You guys won't know it, but I'm gonna tell you that I paused a lot of times. Sometimes I read the story back over from when I, see, I'm already doing it right now. From when I last read, like, for some reason, no, it is, I'm just not getting my words together. I don't know, maybe something's possessing me from saying my words correctly. I don't know, but I guess I don't know. Okay, I'm stopped. But really, that's the end of this video. This is the last video that you guys will see for my extravagant Halloween. Yeah, this is gonna be the second to last video that I post in October. The next video is going to be dealing with costumes. Now I'm debating whether or not I'm gonna find costumes on the internet and rate them, or if I'm going to potentially find pictures of myself and rate my past Halloween costumes. I really want to do the first one, but that depends on whether or not I find the costumes. But that's just an idea. But until then, I hope to see you guys in the next one.